What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and people who don't identify as any of those things? Welcome to another episode of Old News, where I sort of use this as an excuse to go through the one news source that I know and like for photography-related things, and we chat about it. Because why not? You know? It's fun. Then we'll learn how to make your own UV exposure light box. It's not really a light box, but whatever. And then we'll talk about some Q's and A's. So let's jump right in here with the story behind the secret photographers of the Holocaust. In a previous video, we have discussed meaning in photography and the idea that your photography should have a purpose, you should be trying to say something, and an excellent example of this, possibly an extreme example of this, would be the story behind the secret photographers of the Holocaust. There's a movie that either has been made or is being made. I'll be honest, I went through this one real fast. That shows some images that were taken during the Holocaust at like camps. And they're crazy. We'll just like let this bad boy play here for a second. Whoa! Usually I mute before I start, and I'm off my game today. But like they take you on this tour of where the images were actually shot, and they had to be shot like, you couldn't just like walk up to some Nazis and be like, "What's up, guys? Let's pose for photos." That wasn't a thing, so you had to like hide it and then like shoot them all sneaky like, and yeah, really cool stuff. It's a little bit of a downer to start things off with, but it's also kind of incredible that someone had the skills and motivation to take photos like these, and that now we can see them out in the world as a reminder of what happened. And that someone's like decided to make a film about it is really cool. So I'm definitely gonna get my paws on that film and watch that one. That's super cool. And they made like these super cool transparency looking things where you could see like what the buildings looked like, etc. and so forth. Very nifty. And in similar news, lost film rolls from the fall of the Soviet Union, developed 26 years later. These are sharper and did not have to be quite nearly as sneaky, but still crazy cool. The kind of photography that you don't see a lot of these days. You know, when we were printing for photographer Dan Budnick, we used to do silver prints for him. Taylor had the opportunity to print some of his images from the fall of the Berlin Wall. And I feel like photojournalism isn't the same anymore. Maybe it's because everything's in color and it's instant and it doesn't have the same impact to me that way. Or, I don't know. I don't think that it matters to me that they were shot on film, but there's an aesthetic to them. And I don't know. They're really cool. But so yeah, these are, what is it? 24 undeveloped black and white rolls from 96 to 97. And these photos are just super cool. All the links to these stories, which are all on Petapixel this week, because it's the only place I know where to find photography related news, are in the description. A photograph of a photograph, Photoception. I don't know, they're very interesting. It's a kind of slice of life. And really cool. Shot on Nikon, incidentally. Not that that means anything. By the 90s, I feel like Nikon and Canon had basically established their dominance in the pro PJ world, and Leica had sort of fallen into the niche, expensive side of things. Maybe I'm totally wrong about that. And while we're talking about some old school photography, there is a studio here, well, not here, at the Grand Canyon, which is like, whatever, 75 miles from here, called the Kolb, K-O-L-B, Kolb Brothers Studio. And these guys were frickin' badasses. The studio's still there. You can still go visit it today. It's full of photography. It's really cool. These dudes built a studio on the Grand Canyon. And, you know, when you were a tourist riding horses or mules down the trail to the bottom of the canyon, back in the early 1900s, like when the park was established, these dudes would either rappel or climb or scramble down a cliff to take your picture and then develop the film. And then by the time you came back out of the canyon, they had a print of you for yourself. It was like frickin' Disneyland, but in 1902. How crazy is that? They did a run of the Grand Canyon. They built this crazy studio that looks like it wants to fall into the canyon. It's really nifty. I recommend anybody who goes to the canyon, check it out. If you're doing like the touristy experience, like museum style experience, some people want to go to the canyon and take pictures themselves, and that's cool too. But super cool spot. Here's like, look at this. Just dangling with your maybe 4x5 or 5x7. That's cool. They shot a video, they made a whatever. Here you go. Here's what it looks like today. I don't know if you can hear that. Microphone's all the way over here. Neighbors are moving in, moving out, doing crazy stuff in the apartments above us. It's always good to have great neighbors. Anyway, if you're ever in the Grand Canyon at the South Rim, check it out. If you're not going there, then check out this article, because that's cool too. Okay, so here's switching gears ever so slightly. The Beginner's Guide to Black and White Photography. This kind of article is worth a read because a lot of people do black and white conversions a lot of different ways. There are a zillion different ways to skin that cat because most of us shoot in color and convert to black and white. It's always worth a read through any of these articles or books or whatever that you come across, like why and how black and white. That's right. It's good to know both. The one that I see a lot is the timeless look inherent to monochrome photos because, you know, monochrome was first, therefore more likely to be old, timeless. I don't know. I agree with that, and it is a timeless look. You can take one of the prints that we make or that we have up in the gallery, and you have no idea when it was shot, right? You take, like, for instance, a photograph of a lion, right? And if it's in color and it's tack sharp and whatever, you can be reasonably certain it's reasonably new. But if it's black and white and maybe it's got a little vignette, maybe it was taken 100 years ago and there's no kind of way to know. That's the kind of thing that we're going for, you know. Anyway. But anyway, this article talks about settings for shooting in black and white, because you're probably going to shoot in color, but then how do you transfer that to black and white, the conversions and how those work and the different ways to play with that. And yeah, I don't know, thought it was interesting. I like reading these. Like every time I see one, I read it, because you never know when you're going to pick up like a little tip about, oh, I can use this slider to do that, or oh, I should think about my highlights when I'm doing this, whatever. Interesting. And then last but not least is gear related news. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a gear guy, but with the prices of film recently being so absolutely ridiculous, I've seen more interest in half-frame cameras, and apparently Kodak / Reto has seen the same thing, because they've released a half-frame camera. And so a half-frame camera takes a regular 35mm frame, cuts it in half, and you get 2 pictures. So instead of getting 36 exposures per roll, you get 72, which is a lot. You can take a lot of pictures on one roll of film. The trade-off is that they're going to be more grainy because the grain is relatively larger in the picture. You can either shoot a slower film so that you get like the effect of a 400 speed in a 100 speed film, or you can not worry about it and get grainy fucking photos, and they'll be super cool because grain ain't gonna hurt you. More grains. Anyway, anyway is the theme of the day. So these guys, it's a smallish camera. It's like pretty pocketable, not like crazy pocketable, but it'll fit in like a back pocket of your jeans or something. And you get 72 frames per roll. Here's what it looks like when it's all like getting loaded up. We carry them in the shop. I've got them as an in-store thing only right now because I'm sure they're gonna sell out really fast. I'm gonna take one and play with it because I've actually never shot half frame, and it's basically the polar opposite of 8x10. So I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know. They're cool. And honestly, considering they're like, what are they, f9.5 and 100th of a second, they're surprisingly sharp. I don't know which film stock they put through this. This was the TMax. It looks pretty freaking good. Maybe don't shoot directly into the sun, but aside from that, rock and roll. So we've got those, and I'm excited to play with one. That will, that's probably it for the news. Let's go check out how to build your own UV exposure box. Ready, go. Okay, so this is the beginnings of a bare bones UV Lightbox setup. Now, I'm using the term Lightbox very loosely because there's no box. It's just light. But this is what I put together when I was prototyping our 10-foot exposure table. And I figured I could do this and then scale the entire system up. So all this is a standard 48-inch, 4-foot light for like your garage. Like, it's nothing fancy. I got this at Home Depot for like 50 bucks. And it's for T8 fluorescent bulbs. And then we've got just a regular old boring power connection. Like, it's designed to be powered into like a light switch, right? Instead of doing a light switch, I bought an $8 regular 3-prong connector from Home Depot while I was there with a couple of wire nuts. That's it. Now, if you wanted to, you could just take that plug it into the wall, and then figure out your exposure time, and then plug it into the wall and unplug it. I happen to have a spare Gray Lab timer sitting around. So this plugs into this, which plugs into the wall. So now I can time my exposures, which honestly is close enough. You know, you give yourself a little bulb warm up first thing and you're set. So they look like that when they're on. Now, that's a lot of UV light. Isn't that dangerous for your eyes? This is way less strong than the sun, and I spend lots of time out in the sun without sunglasses or UV goggles on. It's not gonna hurt you. It's maybe not great for you. So you don't wanna like hang out in it all day and stare at the bulbs like you would stare at the sun. But honestly, it's fine. My exposures are calibrated to 5 minutes with a 6-inch gap from the bulbs to my contact frame or glass. So, contact frame. You can spend many dollars and get yourself a cool contact frame. They're very pretty. You put your image in, they're split back so that you can check your print halfway through. That's useful while you're getting calibrated. That's just gonna fall. Once you're calibrated and you know that your exposure time is 5 minutes or 20 minutes or however many minutes it is, you don't really need a contact frame most of the time. You just kind of know. So what I then do and what I recommend people do is go to your local glass shop, the people who make custom glass, whatever, and ask them for a sheet of 1/4-inch tempered glass, whatever size you want it to be. Make it bigger than your print. Then get a sheet of just plywood or wood or melamine or kind of anything that's thick and sturdy. Cover it in felt, and you'll end up with plywood on the bottom, felt on top of that, and then your print goes in, your glass goes down, and your exposure unit faces down, right? So you have it up here, 6 inches above your print. That's 6 inches, right? And it just nukes down on the print. No big deal. If you're worried about UV light spillage, which I understand is like a thing, you can make yourself a little curtain that goes all the way around it. You can make yourself a little, since you've got access to wood probably, like put some 2x6s all the way around it. Like, it doesn't have to be real fancy. You are gonna get a little shooting up through this particular unit. No big deal. Things to look out for while you're doing this, the bulbs. My fluorescent bulbs are T8, because that's what this fixture is, right? and they're very specifically 350 nanometer output. That's not the only part of the wavelength that they output, but it's their peak. 350 nanometer black lights will do a good job, not the best job, but a good job for cyanotype and platinum palladium. I find that my platinum exposures with this system are really not that bad. From original negatives, I can be in the 20 to 40 minute range if they're really dense. From cyanotype, from digital negatives, I'm set. I'm right at 5 minutes all the time with the piezography system. That's what I'm calibrated to. Cyanotype takes longer because we're not quite in the sweet spot for that range, and it's a little slower of a process, at least in our experience, with these bulbs. Do you have to use fluorescent blacklight bulbs? No, man. Like, when I was building this system a few years ago, that was pretty much the only option. Now you can buy straight up UV LEDs, which use less power and don't have a warm-up time and are just better in most ways. But then you have to like wire them yourself because you have to strip, you know, however big you want it to be. It can be a little bit more painful. You can also now buy grow bulbs. I've not tried this. They're basically LEDs that are like stuck into a stick. You can get those at Home Depot for your growing needs and use those. And people do that and it works just fine. So this is the method I did because I needed it to be 4 feet by expandable. And what we ended up doing is instead of doing one of these units, we did 6 in banks of 2. So my big UV light table is each one of these 2 lights, so there's 2 of these, is on a switch, so I can do parts of the table if I want to, or I can do the whole one. I end up just using the whole one all the time. So yeah, that's my general approach to this. If I had to do it over again, honestly, I'd probably still do the same thing. The LEDs, my limited experience with LEDs has been longer exposure times. I don't know. These are reasonably high output when they're pretty close to the print, and you don't really have to worry about a whole lot. You just turn it on, rock and roll. I would be interested in exploring like the buy it yourself, grow light, like, you know, whatever $50 option from Home Depot. And maybe we'll do another video if you're interested comparing those LEDs to these fluorescents to maybe a different solution if I can get my paws on one. Sunshine works great, honestly. The only reason, well, one of the reasons we don't use sunshine for our prints is that it's not as predictable. During the summer, we have a brutally high UV index, which means we get, because we're at 7,000 feet, I could probably do a platinum palladium print in like 30 seconds outside. But then during the winter, we're getting a lot less UV, and it would take me like 6 hours to get the exposure to be the same. This is always more or less 5 minutes. I don't have to worry about it. So yeah, that's how I built our system. This is the small one that I use for small things. You can suspend this any way you want. You could just set it on top of a wooden box, or you can, because they're designed to be hung, you can hang them. So this one has these little wires that go from point to point, and we hang it off of an old and larger chassis that lives in the back. And that room is a total mess. So rather than bringing you to that part of the studio, I figured I'd just bring this light source here. It's a lot better looking in here. Yeah, if you have any questions about how this gets done, put them in the comments and I'll answer them. Or join our Discord server if you haven't already and ask me there, because I hang out there most days for a period of time. All right, back to the, well, shit, we're already in the studio. Back to FAQs. All right, you FAQers, let's talk about some FAQ. So this is the segment of the video where I talk about the questions you ask me. Not very many of them are actually frequently asked questions. They're just questions that got asked. But I like to say FAQ, so we'll FAQ and let's just FAQ and make it FAQ. Let's see. Steve has been cruising through the videos. Good to see you, Steve. Love it. I'm just gonna see what I see here. We're gonna cruise through these. Lots of videos, lots of comments on the 4-hour-long live stream that I did where I printed 6 platinum prints over the course of 4 hours with possibly the worst production value I've ever seen in a video. I don't know, it was fun. It seems like you guys enjoyed it, so that, you know, it's great. It's good to have something on, like, in the background, you know? Just, like, it's like a podcast, but less interesting. It's funny. So people recording, or making some comments and stuff on those, that was really cool. I appreciate that. Let's see. Nelson asked, where do we order a print from a digital file on your site? You don't order a print from a digital file on my site. You have to email me. We're a very small lab and I want a working relationship with you, so there's nowhere that you can just upload a file and press print. You have to like engage with me and email me or call me, ideally email me, and we'll work through the process together. So there is a link in the description below to the Getting Started page, which is where you get started with instructions. So yeah, thanks for the question, Nelson. That's good. Let's see. Couple of people commenting on my 8x10 camera at the lake where I did all kinds of weird fun stuff. That was great. Okay. I'm looking for questions. Man, you guys have been really good about just like being positive and putting cool questions in the place where questions go. I love that. Okay, Ardent Media. Is there a drop chart for platinum and palladium? I'm new to all this alt processing and have 2 prints I would like to make, but don't want to spend through all your chemistries as they are expensive. Yeah, for sure. Drop chart for platinum and palladium is as follows. An 8x10 print should be 15 drops of ferric oxalate, followed by a combination of platinum and palladium to total 15 drops. That's it. That's the magic. 15 drops is actually, in my estimation, generally a little overkill, which when you're oh shit. The microphone's all the way up there. You guys, this is fucking super amateur hour today. We're doing great. We're doing great. How's that? Can you see it? A little more up? Yeah. Okay. It's just a skosh. We're going to include all this in the video so you guys can see how stupid we are. How's that? Can you hear me now? Luckily, we have the audio, the studio quality audio from my MacBook Pro, and we may just use that instead. God damn. I'm out of practice. It's been 3 weeks since we made videos. Fuck me. Anyway. Platinum palladium drop counts. 15 drops for a total of a 30 drop emulsion should be overkill, but it's good to learn how to spread chemistry around and work with it. You should be able to get back to 12 or even 10 of each by the time you get like super baller at it, assuming you're in a high humidity environment. You gotta have at least 40 or 50% humidity in the air, and your paper must be exposed to that for like at least 12 hours. Otherwise, fucking good luck. Doesn't matter how many drops you use. That's my recommendation. Yeah, but as far as a chart, no, I don't think so. Let's see. A few weeks ago in old news, number 8 asked if I was using a light meter, and yeah, I used a light meter for the 8x10 shenanigans. I will generally use a light meter while I'm shooting large format because large format film is stupid expensive. It's not often that I do very drastic things with my light meters. I typically kind of meter for the shadows and let it happen. I end up with slightly overexposed negatives, but considering how much bellows I have at any given time, it evens out. Yes, so there is somewhere in this video a light meter. Also, you get to see me in shorts, which is always hilarious. I'm not really a shorts guy in real life. You can tell I'm on vacation when I'm in shorts. Yeah. Anyway, that was the 8x10 shenanigans from a video. You can go check it out. Just because I don't use light meters all the time for all my still photography uses does not mean that I think they have no purpose. I just don't want to carry one around all the time, you know? Like, God. And most of the cameras I use are real old and don't really have a light meter that works. Like all the old professional cameras, the Hasselblads, the Rolleiflexes, the whatever. No light meters. You don't need one. It's fine. It's fine. Let's see. Shoot 120. It's good for you. We'll make a t-shirt. I like that. Geeky Platinum Solution Videos. Cover the issue of humidity. Many people say humidity is important, but forget to mention why. God, there's a lot of words. Good job, Lars. Some issues, paper fibers coming loose, clumping under the brush strokes. I'm worrying. Okay, so let's talk about platinum palladium humidity. You want 50% plus. More is okay, like 60, 70, 80%. I've coded in that. It just takes forever to dry, but it's fine. 50% seems to be the minimum and also the sweet spot most of the time. You want enough emulsion so that you can actually coat the damn thing. But I haven't had to double coat. I haven't had to do really any nasty stuff. So 50% humidity with your paper exposed to that level of humidity for at least 12 hours will help the paper accept the emulsion. It will allow it, because the paper's got some moisture in it already, to actually soak some stuff in. If you do it dry, the paper absorbs it unevenly because it's so thirsty. Thirsty. If you have thirsty paper, it will absorb it too quickly when you're starting, and you'll get an uneven dried coat. Your contrast will look awful. Your print in general will not look very good. Your DMAX will be pathetic. You'll get like a DMAX of less than 1 when you should be getting like 1.2, 1.4. Yeah, so humidity is the secret to platinum palladium printing. If you had to choose one thing to keep consistent from print to print to print in your studio space, it should be humidity. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, humidity is kind of cool as like a side note. And that may be because those people live in humid environments where the humidity is always the same anyway. But we're here where we have to work for it for, 9 or 10 months of the year? Yeah, humidity is the answer. 50% plus and you'll be fine. If you can stabilize the temperature in your printing environment as well, that's super useful. The big, important, calibrated print labs of the world try to keep their temperature and humidity the same all the time. So puberty's hard, guys. So I bought a little temperature and that's for alcohol, humidity measuring device, and just set it on a shelf, and I can always kind of keep track of what's happening in the lab, and when necessary, I note what's happening on the spreadsheet that I use to track every single print I make. Whew, that was a long one. That was worth sitting through this whole video to learn that trick right there. Congratulations to those of you who've made it this far. Let's see. Mounting video. I thought we did a mounting video. Maybe I did one about should you mount your prints, but not how to mount your prints. Doing it yourself, in a nutshell, blows. It's kind of painful. Yeah. The problem is the equipment we use to mount prints is big and ludicrously expensive. You can do the exact same thing with much smaller equipment, but I don't have it here. So it'd be hard for me to show that off unless I borrow it from somebody. I'm sure there's somebody in town. We have one of the old Beanfang presses, but we let the factory smoke out. And it don't work no mo. So, yeah, I'll think about that. I'll put that on the list for something to do. We'll put it on the list. Yeah, mounting is good. Unless it's terrible. And there's a whole video about that. Okay, this is, so in a previous old news, I asked how nerdy you wanted me to get with the platinum palladium recipes. I'll tell you right now which ones I use. The most frequent is a 20% platinum, 80% palladium solution, right? And you can measure that by either milliliters if you're doing big ass prints or drops, right? So 8 drops of palladium, 2 drops of platinum. I find I get a good black without it getting super neutral and without the blacks blocking up. Once you get closer to 50% platinum, 50% palladium, I find that the blacks tend to do strange things. They like to kind of block up. Sometimes they'll get a little chunky. And I don't know where that comes from, but I know that I hate it. So typically I'll stay from 50% platinum to 20% platinum, somewhere in that range. Typically either one or the other. And then the other one I do the most frequently is pure palladium. That used to be the cheapest way to do this because palladium was only like $300 an ounce and it was no big deal. But platinum was the expensive part of the emulsion. And now that's not the case. Now they're the same. Ugh. So gross. They're both crazy expensive and it doesn't really matter which one you're using, so whatever. I personally tend towards the warmer, flatter, more even tones of pure palladium with like a little bit of platinum thrown in. So, yeah, that's how I do it. Oh, this is a thing. So B, who, I don't know how you got that screen name on YouTube. I feel like that would be a difficult thing to achieve. B has suggested I do platinum palladium on Borida coated paper. I've done some research on this. I'm definitely going to try it when I have some time. I'm kind of like totally booked up for the next couple of weeks. Hopefully things will chill out a little and I'll be able to try this. But essentially, from what I can tell, you're taking silver gelatin Borida paper, fixing out all the silver, and then using that paper as a substrate for platinum palladium prints. I found a guy who wrote a book about it. I ordered the book. I'm cautiously optimistic that this is something that I'll be into. It does involve typically a double coat, which means double the cost, plus you're sacrificing a sheet of Borida silver gelatin paper. Seems like a huge pain in the ass, but if I can get a DMax of like 1.8, 1.92, 2.2, anywhere in that range, that would be incredible. I've never done that in platinum. I'm very excited for it. So thank you for the suggestion. I'm definitely going to try it. Let's see here. Okay, let's go to this email here. Let's see, we did that. Oh, Ian asked if we offer processing using 510 Pyro. In a nutshell, yes. I placed an order for Pyro from the guy who makes it in the UK like a month and a half ago, and I haven't seen anything since from him. I don't know if he forgot about me or if he was offended that I didn't send him a PO number or what. I'm a small lab. I don't use purchase orders like shit. But yes, generally speaking, I'll use whatever developer you want. If you want us to do some crazy shit, if you want us to get into Diafine or Pyro or cross-process or whatever you want when we're developing film, happy to do that. No extra charge. Because it helps us learn new things and keep on top of our game. And, you know, you can't do that with a lot of labs. And I like doing things that you can't do at a lot of labs. if that makes any sense. I got a comment on the ridiculous live episode we did about doing an ASMR platinum printing episode, where basically I turn on a camera and probably like a proper microphone or two and do just the sounds of printing. If you're interested in seeing that, leave me a comment, because it's a little bit of work for us to set up, but it could be done. And I don't know, like if I'm going to be printing anyway, might as well put the microphones out. But if nobody wants to watch another 4 hours of me printing, I won't do it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's all the questions I see here. So yeah, that's what we're going to call it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put those in the questions section down below. Comment section down below. God damn. Also, if you are into camera-related merch, check out our website, shop.hiddenlightllc.com, where you can get hats, shirts. I don't have like sweatpants or anything yet, but maybe someday. Yeah. Guess we'll see you in the next one.